Rebecca begged them to stop. But they didn't stop. They laughed as they dragged her small body out of the office, lifting her like she was nothing. They carried her out and dumped her in the office trash like old rappers. Cameras flashed. Jokes flew. Rebecca sat there for a moment crying as she thought about her life. Then, she wiped her tears with shaking hands, wondering how people could be so heartless as crawled out with dirts all over her body. "This is the height of it," she muttered as she walked away. Welcome back. As you enjoy the story, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and also share with your friends. Now back to the story. Rebecca stood in front of the tall glass building in the middle of Lagos. The morning sun bounced off its windows, making it glow like a palace. People in sharp suits and bright dresses hurried inside, some carrying files, others glued to their phones. The sign at the entrance read, "Starlight Fashion Group." For a moment, Rebecca just looked at it. She adjusted her simple blue dress and held her small handbag tightly. She was not tall like the others walking past. In fact, she barely reached their shoulders. At 32, she had learned how people's eyes followed her in every room. Some stared with pity, others with open laughter, but very few treated her as an equal. Today, she was about to test what kind of people worked inside this company. What nobody knew was that Rebecca had just been named the new chief executive officer of Starlight Fashion Group. Her late uncle, who founded the company, had left everything to her in his will. But before stepping in officially, she wanted to see for herself what kind of staff she was inheriting. Would they treat her with dignity if they thought she was nobody? Rebecca's heart beat faster as she walked toward the entrance. Her steps were slow but steady. The security man at the gate glanced at her, then frowned. "Madam, where are you going?" he asked in a voice that carried more suspicion than respect. "I'm here for the interviews," Rebecca replied calmly. The man looked her up and down. His lips twisted. "Interviews? Are you serious? This is Starlight Fashion, not a charity office." Rebecca swallowed but kept her composure. "Yes, I know where I am. I'm here for the interviews." Some people standing in line began to notice. A tall young woman in heels laughed out loud. "Is she joking? She wants to work here? With her height? Big." Others joined in, some whispering, some laughing openly. Rebecca ignored them and moved forward. But the security guard stretched his arm to block her. "I don't think you should waste your time. We can't allow people who don't fit our image." Before she could reply, one of the company's junior staff came outside to collect files from the receptionist. He saw Rebecca and burst into laughter. "Oh my God! What is this? Who let her in? Is this a prank?" Rebecca felt a sting in her chest but kept her head up. She had faced such reactions all her life. Still, it hurt more when it came so quickly, even before she had said a word about her skills. The young man called 2 of his colleagues. Soon, 3 of them surrounded her. "You can't work in fashion," one said mockingly. "Models will faint if they see you. Designers will quit." Another added, "Madam, you belong in Nollywood comedy, not in a company like this." Rebecca's fingers trembled around her bag, but she forced herself not to break. She wanted to see how far their cruelty would go. The crowd at the entrance was growing. Candidates who had come for the interviews watched, some shaking their heads but saying nothing. Others laughed, enjoying the scene. A few even pulled out their phones to record. Rebecca tried to step inside, but one of the men blocked her again. "I said you're not entering." He looked at his friends. "She probably came to beg. She can't be here for work." Then came the worst part. The staff grabbed her by the arm and began pulling her toward the side of the building where the trash bins stood. She gasped, struggling. "Let me go. I have a right to be here." They laughed louder. "A right to enter trash?" "Yes," one shouted. In a matter of seconds, Rebecca found herself dragged across the pavement. Her handbag fell and scattered, but no one cared. The men shoved her toward the large green bin overflowing with waste from the cafeteria. The stench hit her nose. Before she could stop them, one gave a push. Rebecca stumbled and landed on the pile of trash bags. Her dress smeared with dirt, her hair tangled, the laughter of the workers and onlookers ringing in her ears. Some people clapped as if it were entertainment. One of the women waiting for interview shook her head in disbelief, muttering, "Wickedness." But she didn't step forward to help. Rebecca sat up slowly inside the trash area. For a moment, the humiliation was almost unbearable. She felt like a child again, back in secondary school, when classmates hid her shoes and laughed as she tried to reach them. But she was no longer a child. She was stronger now. And unknown to all of them, she had the power to change their lives forever. She rose to her feet, brushing dirt from her dress. Her eyes scanned the faces around her. None of them knew she was the rightful CEO of this same company. None of them imagined that within a few weeks, she would sit in the very top office of the building, deciding who stayed and who was fired. Rebecca quietly picked her bag, dusted it, and without another word, walked away. But inside her chest, a storm was building. This was only the beginning. The next morning, the staff of Starlight Fashion Group carried on as though nothing had happened. The interviews continued. Designers rushed with sketches, assistants dragged racks of clothing, and reception buzzed with chatter. To them, yesterday's incident was just another joke, something to laugh about in the group chat. In the staff lounge, two employees, Kelvin and Sandra, sat sipping coffee. Kelvin, the same man who had pushed Rebecca into the trash, told the story with hand gestures, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You should have seen her face," he said, laughing so hard his coffee nearly spilled. "She thought she could walk into Starlight and ask for work. A dwarf. In fashion. I couldn't hold myself. I just had to show her where she belonged. Inside the dustbin." Sandra chuckled, shaking her head. "Kelvin, you are wicked. But honestly, what was she thinking? This company is all about glamour. Our brand sells luxury to people who want to look perfect. How would someone like her even fit in?" Across the room, some staff laughed along, while others kept quiet, uncomfortable but unwilling to challenge the group. In this company, mocking people had almost become culture. Designers mocked models who didn't fit their taste. Managers mocked junior staff for simple mistakes. It was as if cruelty was a badge of belonging. Unknown to them, Rebecca had not given up. She had spent the night cleaning her dress and gathering her thoughts. Sitting in her modest apartment, she stared at the mirror. Her reflection showed a woman who had been dragged through humiliation, yet her eyes still burned with determination. "They think I am nobody," she whispered to herself. "Let them laugh. Let them think I am trash. Soon, they will know the truth." Rebecca picked up her uncle's old leather diary from the table. Inside were pages of his handwriting, reminders, notes, even dreams for the company he built. He had trusted her with his empire not because of her height, but because of her heart, her education, and her relentless spirit. She remembered his last words before he died. "Rebecca, don't try to be like them. Lead with who you are. Your strength will be tested, but never hidden." By midweek, Rebecca returned to the company, this time not as a silent visitor, but as a shadow watching from the background. She entered quietly, wearing a cap and loose shirt, blending in with delivery workers. She wanted to see if the cruelty of the staff was only at the gate or if it ran deeper into the company itself. And she saw it. At the reception, a young cleaner was scolded harshly by a manager for accidentally spilling water on the floor. "You useless thing. You don't belong here. You should be cleaning gutters in the street," the manager shouted as others laughed. In the design department, Rebecca overheard two stylists gossiping about a colleague who wasn't slim enough to attend the company's next fashion show. "Imagine her representing us? People will think we design for the poor," one of them sneered. Every corner Rebecca turned, she saw pride, disrespect, and arrogance. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about the culture her uncle's company had become, a place where people measured worth only by appearance, never by character. Rebecca walked back out into the street that day with her chest tight. If she was going to step into her role as CEO, she couldn't just sign papers and sit in an office. She had to change the heart of the company itself. But she knew one thing: the staff were not ready to accept someone like her. They would resist, mock, and try to push her out. The thought of returning to the very people who had dragged her into trash filled her with both fear and fire. Could she truly lead people who despised her before knowing her name? Meanwhile, inside the building, Kelvin bragged again about the trash bin incident. Some employees laughed until tears rolled down their faces. A few recorded him, posting short clips on social media. The video gained comments quickly, some mocking Rebecca, others condemning the staff for such cruelty. The clip went viral in a small circle, but nobody in the company cared. To them, it was funny. To Rebecca, it was proof of what needed to change. That evening, she sat by her window, the city lights glowing in the distance. For the first time, she allowed herself to cry. Not from shame, but from the weight of the task ahead. She would soon have to walk back into that building, not as a silent observer, but as their leader. Would they listen? Or would they continue to treat her as trash? Rebecca wiped her tears, stood tall, and whispered again to herself. This is just the beginning. They don't know who I am. But they will. Rebecca spent the following days quietly preparing. She knew she could not rush into the boardroom without strategy. If she appeared too suddenly, the staff might dismiss her authority, laughing in her face the same way they did outside the building. She needed her entry to be firm, undeniable, and unforgettable. At home, she pulled out documents from her uncle's lawyers, proof of her new position, the official handover notes, and even her uncle's personal letters to the board of directors. Every page reminded her that this company was now hers. But with every reminder came the heavy question: would they ever accept me? Rebecca was no stranger to rejection. As a child, she had watched her own cousins avoid walking with her in public. People will laugh at us if they see you, one cousin had once said. Even teachers underestimated her. Yet, Rebecca had fought her way through school, graduating top of her class in business administration. Abroad, she earned her master's degree in fashion management, proving her knowledge was not limited by her size. Now, all those years of endurance were preparing her for this very moment. Meanwhile, inside Starlight Fashion Group, the staff remained blind to what was coming. The mockery had become routine. By Friday, the trash bin story had been retold so many times that it spread beyond the company walls. Some employees turned it into a running joke. Whenever someone made a mistake, they'd say, "Better watch out or Kelvin will throw you in the trash," and laughter would erupt. Even worse, one intern who had recorded the incident posted the video on her TikTok account. Within days, it gathered thousands of views. Strangers online began debating. Some criticized the cruelty, while others mocked Rebecca mercilessly. The company itself hadn't issued any statement, since management assumed it was just another online distraction. Rebecca saw the video one evening while scrolling. Her chest tightened as she watched herself struggling in the trash while people laughed in the background. It stung, but it also fueled her determination. If I can survive being treated like garbage, she whispered to herself, then I can survive being their leader. The following Monday, Rebecca met with her uncle's lawyer, Mr. Daniels, in a quiet cafe far from the company. He was a tall, calm man in his 50s, with a voice that carried both authority and kindness. "They're not expecting you," Daniels said, sliding a folder across the table. "This folder contains everything you'll need when you walk in. The will, the board approval documents, the ownership transfers. Once you present these, no one can question your place." Rebecca touched the folder gently. "But will they respect me, Daniels? They laughed at me. They dragged me through the trash." Daniels sighed, folding his arms. "Respect is not always given freely. Sometimes it must be earned. But remember this, Rebecca. Your uncle chose you because he believed in you, not them. Don't waste that belief." Rebecca nodded slowly. She knew he was right. She could not afford to allow fear or humiliation to define her next steps. She had to rise above it, not just for herself, but for every person who had been judged for how they looked instead of who they were. Back at Starlight, tension was building among employees for another reason. The company had been without a CEO for weeks, and rumors swirled about who would take the seat. Some believed it would be Mr. Adrian, the loud marketing director who loved the spotlight. Others thought it might be Ms. Gloria, the strict operations head who was feared by most. Everyone expected someone tall, elegant, and commanding, an image that fit their fashion-driven mindset. Nobody suspected it would be the same strange woman they had thrown into the trash. That week, Rebecca secretly visited the company one last time before her official reveal. Disguised again as a delivery worker, she slipped into the back entrance, walking through hallways with a keen eye. She saw the arrogance, the gossip, the shallow judgments. She even heard her own name. Kelvin was boasting again near the reception desk. If that dwarf ever shows her face here again, I'll personally make sure she never enters. Imagine her wanting to sit in the same office as us. The others laughed. One woman said, God forbid. Someone like that in charge? Starlight would collapse. Rebecca's hands clenched into fists. The words burned, but she forced herself to stay calm. Soon, she thought. Soon you will see who I really am. By Thursday, Daniels called her again. Rebecca, the board is meeting tomorrow morning. That will be your moment. Walk in there with your head high. Don't let them see fear. Let them see strength. Rebecca hardly slept that night. She laid out her clothes, a fitted black suit, polished shoes, and a necklace her uncle had given her before he died. She practiced her words in the mirror, reminding herself not to tremble. When dawn broke, the city outside was alive with car horns and rushing footsteps, but Rebecca felt strangely still. This was the day she would stop hiding. The day the staff would finally know the truth. As she picked up the folder and slid it into her briefcase, she whispered, "They saw me as trash. Tomorrow, they will see me as their leader." Friday morning, the staff of Starlight Fashion Group buzzed with excitement. Rumors had spread like wildfire. Today, the new CEO is coming. No one knew who it was, but everyone had their guesses. In the reception, workers whispered as they adjusted their outfits. "It must be Adrian," someone said. "He's been acting like the seat is already his." "No, it's Gloria," another replied. "She already ordered new office furniture last week." Kelvin smirked. "Whoever it is, they better not embarrass us. This is Starlight, not a circus." The elevator doors opened and board members began to arrive. Tall men in tailored suits, women in elegant gowns, all heading upstairs to the boardroom. The tension grew thicker with each passing minute. At exactly 10 a.m., Mr. Daniels, the lawyer, walked into the building carrying a leather folder. His calm but firm presence drew attention immediately. "Board members, kindly proceed to the meeting room," he said. Employees strained their necks, waiting for the new CEO to walk in behind him. But nobody came. The elevator closed, and the crowd murmured in confusion. Inside the boardroom, the directors sat in plush chairs around the long table. Adrian, the marketing director, adjusted his tie and leaned back with a smirk. Gloria sat with a notebook open, tapping her pen impatiently. They were both confident. One of them was sure to walk out as CEO. Daniels stood at the front, clearing his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for gathering today. As you know, Mr. Edward, the founder of Starlight, left behind not only a company but also clear instructions about his successor." The room grew silent. Adrian's grin widened. Gloria leaned forward, her pen ready. Daniels opened the folder. "According to Mr. Edward's will, the rightful CEO of Starlight Fashion Group is," he paused deliberately, scanning the room, "Miss Rebecca Cole." For a moment, nobody moved. Then Adrian burst out laughing. "A joke, right? Who is that?" Gloria frowned. "Rebecca Cole? Never heard of her. Is she even in fashion?" Daniels held up the signed documents. "She is not only qualified, but she is the sole heir chosen by the founder himself. And she is here today." The doors opened. All heads turned. Rebecca walked in slowly, dressed in a sharp black suit, her step steady, her head high. She looked nothing like the woman they had mocked in the trash. Her hair was neatly pulled back, her necklace shining under the lights, her presence filling the room despite her small stature. The boardroom fell into dead silence. Adrian's jaw dropped. Gloria's pen slipped from her fingers. One director muttered, "Impossible." But it was Kelvin, standing by the side as an assistant, that reacted the loudest. His face turned pale, his mouth dry. "No, it can't be. It's her." Whispers spread. Some directors remembered seeing the viral video online. They now realized the woman in the trash was the very person about to lead them. Rebecca placed her briefcase on the table and opened it calmly. She pulled out the documents, laying them neatly before the board. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded. "My name is Rebecca Cole. Some of you may recognize me. Some of you laughed at me. Some of you dragged me where trash belongs." She let the words hang in the air. "But my uncle believed in me. And whether you like it or not, I am now the CEO of Starlight Fashion Group." Silence. No one dared interrupt. She continued, her eyes scanning the room. "I know what many of you think. That fashion is about tall, perfect bodies. That leadership is about image. But I stand here as proof that vision and determination matter more than appearance." Adrian cleared his throat, trying to laugh it off. "With all due respect, how can someone like you manage us? This company thrives on image." Rebecca's gaze sharpened. "Then perhaps it's time the image changed." Her words struck like thunder. One of the older directors leaned forward, studying her carefully. "She has her uncle's fire," he murmured. "I can see it." Daniels stepped in. "The papers are final. Rebecca Cole is your CEO. If anyone has objections, take them to court. Until then, she holds full authority." Rebecca closed the folder and straightened her posture. "From today, things will not remain the same. This company will no longer thrive on mockery and pride. If you cannot respect people, whether they are models, staff, or even cleaners, then you have no place here." The boardroom was thick with tension. Some directors looked uneasy, others impressed. Kelvin stood frozen, sweat forming on his forehead. For the first time since her uncle's death, Rebecca felt the power of her position. Not revenge, not bitterness, but the weight of responsibility. These were the people she had to lead. These were the ones who had laughed at her. Now they would answer to her. The news spread like wildfire. By the afternoon, the entire building buzzed with shock. "The dwarf woman is our CEO." Whispers filled every hallway. Some employees refused to believe it until they saw her with their own eyes, walking into the executive floor with her briefcase in hand. In the staff lounge, Kelvin sat in a corner, his head buried in his palms. The same mouth that had laughed the loudest was now trembling in silence. Sandra, who once mocked Rebecca, stared blankly at her phone, scrolling through comments on social media. The viral video had taken a new turn. Now people were celebrating Rebecca as a symbol of resilience, while shaming Starlight employees for their cruelty. By evening, Rebecca called for her first general staff meeting. Hundreds gathered in the large showroom where fashion shows were usually held. The same place that once displayed perfect bodies was now about to witness a new kind of power. When Rebecca stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. She stood behind the podium, small in stature but commanding in presence. "I know what many of you are thinking," she began. "How can someone like me lead you? You've laughed at me, pushed me aside, even thrown me into trash. You thought I didn't belong here. But I do. And so do others you've treated with the same disrespect." Her voice grew stronger with every word. "This company was built on creativity and vision, not cruelty. Yet, I have walked through your halls and seen how cleaners are insulted, how staff mock each other, how only the tallest or most glamorous are valued. That ends today." The room was still. Some shifted uneasily, others hung their heads. Rebecca continued. "Those who dragged me into the trash taught me something. When you judge people only by their appearance, you blind yourself to their true worth. I may not be tall. I may not fit your image of glamour. But I carry the same fire my uncle used to build this empire. And I will carry it forward, with or without you." Her words hit like thunder. Some employees clapped quietly. Others avoided eye contact. Then Rebecca turned her gaze toward Kelvin, who sat near the front row, his face pale. "Kelvin, she said firmly. Stand up. The crowd gasped. Slowly, Kelvin rose, his legs shaking. You dragged me into the trash, Rebecca said, her tone calm but sharp. Tell me, do you still think I belong there? Kelvin's lips quivered. No, Ma. I was wrong. I didn't know. You didn't know who I was, Rebecca interrupted. But you did know I was human. And still, you treated me like dirt. That is the real shame. The silence in the hall grew heavier. Kelvin bowed his head. Rebecca didn't humiliate him further. She turned back to the audience. This is not about revenge. This is about change. From today, respect is not optional. It is culture. If you cannot treat others with dignity, you will not work here. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Some looked relieved, others nervous. But all knew she meant every word. Over the following weeks, Starlight Fashion Group began to transform. Rebecca introduced new policies, fair treatment for all staff, diversity in hiring, and fashion lines that represented people of all shapes and sizes. For the first time, models of different heights and body types walked the runway, and the public loved it. Sales began to rise. The company that once thrived on shallow beauty now became a leader in inclusive fashion. Media outlets celebrated Rebecca's story, from trash to throne, the woman who redefined fashion. Rebecca did not fire Kelvin immediately. Instead, she gave him one chance to prove he could change. Humiliated, he worked harder than ever, learning humility the painful way. Other staff followed suit, their attitudes shifting slowly as they realized this was not the same company they had known. One evening, Rebecca stood in her office on the top floor, the very office her uncle once used. Through the glass window, she looked down at the city lights. For a moment, she thought of the day she had been thrown into the trash, her dignity stripped in front of strangers. The memory still stung, but it also reminded her of how far she had come. She whispered to herself, "They thought I was nobody, but being nobody taught me how to lead." A gentle smile touched her face. She wasn't just running a company. She was rewriting its soul. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe and turn on your notification for more. See you soon.